40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
When we last left the action in the all-wheel drive Britpart Safari Championship, it would be a Rowlands-dominated podium with Jason Rowlands taking victory and Dad Paul managing third place on their home event. Douglas Devonall Batt would manage to get himself between them on the timesheet though to take second place. After a slightly longer break than planned due to the planned Ilfracombe round being cancelled, the crews were back out on some less than favourable conditions at Whaddon. And fastest over the morning's opening runs will be second place from the previous round, Douglas Devonall Batt. The conditions were tricky, to say the least, but things were going well, and he opened up a small lead of 6 seconds at this early stage. Second place at this stage, just as quick out of the blocks as he was last time out, will be Jason Rowlands. Fastest on the opening run of the day, but not quite gaining enough time on the second run to keep that early lead. And third place at this early stage will be in the hands of Joe Philpott. And it was clear, looking at the conditions and the results, that the buggies were going to be the ones to beat this weekend, filling out the podium positions and indeed much of the top 10 overall leaderboard. This would only be the third Comp Safari event for Shabs Piercy and Sai Sagar. They had shown some good pace on previous rounds, but had been let down by reliability. So far this weekend, though, that seemed to be behind them. With only 2 runs complete, it was hard to say how the rest of the event would play out, but so far, so good. Fifth at this stage will be the GSR racing team, and they were putting in some strong times as well, continuing to add more Class 5 crews to the top of the results, with 5th overall and in the class. No issues to report for Jason and Deb Morgan. They were going well, as was the car. The times looking good too. They end run 2 with 6th overall. And just behind them on the overall and class results will be Matthew Hall. Fresh from a 3rd place finish as a co-driver on the recent Yorkshire Hill Rally, he was back in the driving seat this weekend, ending the morning with 7th. And this weekend will be the local event for Ed Smith and Beth Heaps. They put in some good times through the opening runs of the day in conditions that certainly shouldn't have suited that rear-wheel drive car, but they were going well, sitting in 8th place overall for now, ready for a big push from that Class 3 lead. There was a bit of a buffer in that position as well, a comfort margin of around 30 seconds back to Paddy Barker, who ends this run with 9th overall. And rounding out the top 10 were Philippa and James Tennant. They were close on the times to Barker, only 3 seconds between the two, so the next few runs would be crucial. Taking a look at some of the positions outside of the top 10 leaderboard, it would be a Class 6 lead for Brian Birch, and as well as that lead in the class, it would be a strong 11th place overall as well. Everything was going well, meanwhile, for Adam Warts and Peyton Lewis. They had Adam's dad Andrew jumping in for a few runs to give them some pointers, and it was proving to work well. The pair leading the way in Class 4 from 12th overall. For Kieran Jones and Eloise Donovan, it will be 2nd place in Class 4. They seemed to be coping well with the slippery conditions to lie in 14th on the overall leaderboard. And Leighton Dodds would be around 30 seconds back from the pair in 15th overall. Not in the same class though, it was fair to say. Himself taking 2nd in Class 6 for now. Leading the way, meanwhile, in Class 9 at this early stage was Bruce Mallet. The gap's getting a little bigger as we go down the overall results though. So it would be a big push to try and gain any positions later in the event from this point. And there were a few crews out this weekend competing for Class 7 honours. The fastest of them at this stage would be this man, Brian Dyke. He lies in 17th place overall. In Class 4, it was 3rd overall for Barry Dodd and Kim Baker. They'd end Run 2 18th overall as well. And a pair who were really enjoying themselves so far this weekend were Adam and Emma Borrell, one of a few who were actually enjoying the slippery conditions out there on this wet course. They take an early lead in Class 2 at this stage from 19th on the overall leaderboard. Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell, meanwhile, were getting a few of the corners wrong. It was more about where the car wanted to go in places rather than where you wanted it to go. But they get through with 2nd place in Class 7 and 20th overall for their efforts for now. It was a similar story for Martin Clark and Chris Norton as well. When the car was pointing where they wanted it to go, things were working well. They would reach the end of Run 2 with the car seemingly having a mind of its own and being a bit of a struggle out there in the conditions, but they do lead Class 1. And second in that class was Colin Parker at this stage. It was close as well in the class, just 5 seconds separating the pair. The class leaders in the overall position ahead of them would not have it their own way later in the event, that is for sure. And indeed, it was close to 3rd as well. Not quite as close, though. Alan and Daniel Wilcox, about 14 seconds to find if they wanted to challenge for a position higher in the class. Just the one crew in Class 8 this weekend, so that would belong to Sam Burley, the class lead and 24th overall. The pace had slowed a little for James Withers and Andy Kent. Not too much, but they do lose a bit of time on Run 6. Still holding 2nd in the class though for now, 25th overall. It was a similar story for Jonathan Harford and Daniel Drummond as well. They were actually slower on the 2nd run of the morning as the course started to polish up and become more treacherous. They'd end the morning 26th overall. And it's fair to say these conditions didn't exactly suit Margaret and Mike Bakewell either. Margaret hadn't driven in mud this bad before, so it would be a steady start getting used to how the car handles, or as the case probably was, didn't handle. They end the morning 3rd in Class 7, 29th overall. A similar story as well for Chris and David Bowler. They'd be more used to Dusty Bovington, but this was something else altogether. They end the loop 3rd in Class 2, 30th overall. A hole in the radiator wasn't the ideal start to their day though. Luckily, before they took to the start line, so chance to sort things out before those runs started. So with 2 runs complete, here's how the leaderboard is looking so far here at round 6. On to the next few runs, and there'd be some change in the top of our leaderboard. We see Shabs Piercy and Sai Sagar having a good, clean run with no issues to take the lead now. The reliability still seeming to be good at this stage, although, given their past experiences so far on the events they've done, they'd no doubt be listening for every little noise right to the finish. That change in the lead means it's also a drop down to 2nd for Douglas Devon-Bat. He was keeping in with a shout of that victory still though, only 4 seconds between the pair at this stage. No change for Joe Philpott, still 3rd for him. Indeed, there would only be 10 seconds between him and 2nd. So it was all quite close in the podium positions after 5 runs. There was a bit of time lost though for Jason Rowlands, slipping down the order a little into 4th. 9 seconds back from the podium positions, so with 3 more runs to go, he'd be likely on a big push. For Guy Smith, meanwhile, it will be 5th place still. No change in that overall or class position for him, although now the times on the leaderboard were getting a bit further apart than those up ahead. It was going to be a big push if he was looking at making any moves at all on the rest of that leaderboard, at least in an upward direction. The only issue Jason and Deb Morgan were reporting this weekend would just be the sheer amount of mud collecting on the car and needing to be removed after each run. They end the middle loop of runs 6th place overall and in the class. No change for Matthew Hall. It was looking like he might be in no man's land a little, with 7th overall for now and in the class. Some good sized gaps now opening up between him and the crews either side on that leaderboard. And Philippa and James Tennant were climbing slightly up the standings. Only 1 place for now though, but it was at least in the right direction. They'd end these few runs in 8th place overall, of course now 8th in the class as well. And 9th in the class and on the overall leaderboard at this stage would be Paddy Barker. Going well still, plenty of skids out on the course. And rounding out the top 10 overall now would be Ed Smith and Beth Heaps. A few big rain showers in the middle of the day, making the course even more tricky for the rear-wheel drive pair on their local event. They keep things inside the top 10 though, nice and neat despite the conditions and still holding that Class 3 lead. But they'd want things to dry out again so they could push. 5 runs complete here at Whaddon, then the results at the top shaping up like this. On to the final runs of the day then here at Whaddon, and a countdown of the finishers this weekend. In 28th overall, it would be Alan and Daniel Wilcox. The pair taking 3rd in Class 1 this weekend. A couple of maximum times hampering their results this weekend. No change for Sam Burley, the only crew in Class 8. It meant the victory there, of course, but maximums on the final 2 runs would see a disappointing 27th place overall result. It was gearbox issues on the penultimate run of the event, ruining Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell's finish. They were now down in 26th position overall, having to miss the final run of the event. They do take 3rd in Class 7 though. Chris and David Bowler had found the event pretty good overall, enjoying the challenge of the conditions and the new driving styles that it meant they had to master as a result. They take 2nd in Class 2 from 25th overall. It was bad news for Joe Philpott though. After such a good run and with a chance of a podium result at the very least, he would suffer damage to the front corner of the car, forced to miss the final 2 runs of the event, and as a result finishing down in 24th. Connor Francis and Bill Harrison would have a small electrical fire on the opening run of the day. They were going to call it a day, but fellow competitors would step into the breach, help them get it sorted and back out on the course, where they'd end the event 2nd place in Class 1. For James Withers and Andy Kent, it would be 2nd in Class 9. They'd end the event 22nd on the overall leaderboard as well. And run 5 was pretty eventful. It would see Martin Clark and Chris Norton suffering some damage to their top mount. But with some help, they too managed to get things sorted and back out again on the course. And they take their first ever class win this weekend in Class 1. A good job that they got back out on that course, isn't it? Bruce Mallet would get close to finishing the event without any major issues to report, but frustratingly, disaster would strike before the final run of the day, and he'd get a maximum, having to sit out the final run of the event, dropping him down to 18th overall. Margaret and Mike Bakewell will be 19th place overall, pretty relieved to be at the finish in these conditions as well. Mike back in the driving seat through the afternoon runs, taking over from Margaret. A more familiar setup for those who remember them from previous years, of course. And indeed, next season, that would be the plan once again, as the pair come out with Mike driving that TMC machine again. And things had worked well this weekend for Adam and Emma Borrell. They get to the finish with no issues to report whatsoever, the car working as it should, and the pair able to take the Class 2 victory, as well as 18th overall. Ross Williams managed to stay out of trouble this weekend as well, getting through all of the runs to take 17th overall, as well as 4th in Class 4. For Brian Dyke, meanwhile, it would be the class win in Class 7. A strong run throughout the day, keeping things going in the right direction, well, as much as possible anyway, in these muddy conditions. He takes 16th overall. And for Kieran Jones and Eloise Donovan, it will be third in Class 4. An issue on Run 3, dropping them down the order a little. But the times later in the day were strong, setting some good overall times from that 15th overall position. Sticking with Class 4, it will be second in that class for Barry Dodd and Kim Baker. They put in some good times in the later runs of the event, making sure that they got a good overall and class finish this weekend. And apart from a few missing mud flaps, which you obviously need when it's muddy, it will be a trouble-free run for Adam Warts and Peyton Lewis. They managed to take the Class 4 win this weekend, the pair doing enough for 13th place on the overall results as well. Just ahead of them on that overall leaderboard was Leighton Dodds. He'd been consistent throughout the day, ending the event with 12th overall and second in Class 6. Tom Woodward and Oakley Hayward were getting to grips with the car once again after spending 3 months away with a broken gearbox. And they were going well. They'd slide into a ditch though on the final run, putting the car on its side and losing around 4 minutes in the process. They take 11th place overall, but it could certainly have been a top 10 finish had it not been for that mishap. So we're on to a hard-fought top 10, pretty grueling in these conditions as well, and it will be 10th place for Brian Birch. That result seeing him taking the Class 6 win as well this weekend. For Ed Smith and Beth Heaps, it will be 9th. It was their aim to finish in the top 6 of an event this season, but that wasn't to be this weekend. And with conditions like this, it was no wonder why. The rain coming down heavy for the final run and costing the pair around a minute. Things had gone to plan for Paddy Barker. There'd be no issues to report other than being another of the crews to have been caught out in that final run downpour. But 8th overall was a good finish. Philippa and James Tennant also happy with their 7th place overall finish. They'd had a good position in the results all day, and importantly, they'd kept things in one piece to the finish. There was not much more that Matthew Hall could possibly have done. He ends the event 6th on the overall results, and with the top crews not claiming a class award as well as the overall ones, it means that Matthew does enough for a 3rd place trophy in the 5A class. Just ahead of Hall on the overall and the class timesheets will be Jason and Deb Morgan. They'd had a good run, they were happy with their times, and they'd be taking a 2nd place finish in the class as well. For Guy Smith, it was the Class 5 win. With those podium position crews not taking a class award, he also takes that 1st place in Class 5. And also finishes just the other side of the podium in 4th overall. Not a bad day's driving on this muddy and tricky course. On to those podium positions then, and the lead had been changing hands all day. It had been close out there, but it would be bad luck for Jason Rowlands. He goes out for his final run just as the heavens opened, losing around a minute, costing them at least 1 position, possibly overall victory. There was no change to 2nd place though. Douglas Devenall-Batt had been one of the crews leading at one point during the event. He'd held it there to the finish as well. 2nd place, a good finish this weekend and in the championship. But taking the victory will be Shabs Piercy and Sai Sagar. They'd had the speed on previous rounds, but the reliability just hadn't been there. This weekend it all came together and they took their 1st ever victory on only their 4th Comp Safari event. So with round 6 complete, here's a reminder of the final overall results here at Whaddon.
So we've seen the pace this season, but not always the reliability, but it seems like it's all come together this time around.
Yeah, so pretty much the case. Yeah, we've had 3 rounds now with the all-wheel drive club. And had a few reliability issues, only minor things but enough to make the difference with this Comp Safari stuff. So this is the first one we've had a clean race all the way through, got 3 clean laps in, although not actually clean. And yeah, it's just gone to plan, and we had a good pace and went well.
Second place, and it's been a very close battle all day, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been close, mate. Yeah, it's rough and slippery today, but we got it to the end.
It looked like the course was drying up slightly towards the end.
Very slightly, but you could still get it. If you got sideways, you were off. But it did dry out a tiny bit until that last shower. But we got there.
Jason, third place. It's been a very close battle all day, hasn't it?
Yeah, been a good weekend by the rain, but the track was good. The mechanics was spot on. Yeah, just a shame it's rained, and yeah, good result. Yeah, very good. And thank you for my dad sponsoring the team. Yeah, it's pretty good, but just a shame the rain pissed down.
Next up, the championship heads to the 2-day event at Walters Arena. A longer challenge than normal, and one that we can expect some great battles on the course for once again. We'll of course be there to bring you all of the action. For now though, thank you for watching.